Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome back. I'm going to start again. Kia ora koutou katoa. Mai haere mai ki te ao Hākinakina, your sports show right here on your Tribal Pulse. Te korimako o Taranaki 94.8 FM and 98.4 FM. Well, she is one of Taranaki's most respected and accomplished players from her early days in the region through to representing Central Pulse and New Zealand age group sides, and most recently helping guide Tysons to another Premier National netball title. She has enjoyed an impressive journey in the game. No mai haere mai, Amber Ormond, welcome to the show.
Cool, thanks for having me.
Awesome, been looking forward to having a catch up with you. Obviously had an interview with your husband recently, Jackson, which was really, really cool, but keen to hear all about you. Now, just to start off the show, ko wai koe, no he koe, just a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, I grew up in Inglewood, and I attended a little rural school up in Kaimiro, which is not running anymore, but we had a really humble little 14 student school, and I was in the same class as my older brother and older sister. So yeah, I think that that in itself actually reflects a lot about kind of how I grew up, and just always having to compete with the big kids, and I'm the youngest in my family, so I think that kind of the position in the family kind of sometimes tells its own story as well. But yeah, so I went to school, went to primary school there, headed into New Plymouth to finish my primary years at St John Bosco, which is where I currently teach actually, wow. And then went off to Sacred Heart, followed my sister to Sacred Heart. So yeah, so schooled in New Plymouth mainly, but some humble little upbringing in Kaimiro.
Beautiful part of the world it is, Kaimiro. Lovely to hear that you were brought up out there. Now, like being out there, what got you into sports? Obviously, your siblings, you would have been out there. What got you into sports?
Yeah, I think my family, similar story to Jackson, I suppose, but my family were, especially my dad, was always involved in sport, and mum loved sport as well, but always encouraged us to do everything, and we kind of had to, because to make a team, we only had 14 people to choose from, so we all had to play. But no, all of our summer holidays and spare moments were spent outside. Quite different to maybe lives these days, but we were always out climbing trees and playing games, and I played pretty much every sport I could. Sometimes I played sports without telling mum and dad I'd signed myself up, and then they'd find out, and because we had to kind of keep to a number of sports, otherwise it was too busy for them to be driving us around everywhere. But I just loved everything about sport. I think it was the competitive nature of it that I just wanted to get into it all. And all my cousins were older than me as well, so I was always the youngest and just had to try and keep up with everybody, really.
Choice. Now, I've read that that basketball was actually your first sport. Is that right? Like, what was it that drew you towards netball once you because obviously basketball being your first sport, but you ended up in netball. So what was that transition like?
Yeah, I loved basketball. I think that the limited rules in basketball compared to netball, I loved just being able to run everywhere and just get the ball whenever you wanted it, kind of thing. Whereas netball, you have to be more patient and stick to your area, and there's a lot more rules structure to it. But I just loved basketball. I still love basketball, still play a little bit every now and then, but my body's not quite the same anymore. But I played a lot of basketball through age groups, and I did always opt to go the basketball pathway, right up until I was playing under 14s in a tournament in Napier actually, and I was kind of heading towards like that, and I played under 16s as well, New Zealand pathway, and then Tanya Dunes was in Napier because that's where she was based at the time, and she had been watching the tournament, and she had I had no idea, but she was coaching the Flyers for the next year. So the Flyers is the old National Bank Cup team, and she just decided without me even knowing that I was going to be coming to the trials, and that she had her eye on me. So it was actually Ivy Topping who has coached me and obviously been a big influence on my life. But it was her that said, right, you're going to these trials, and you've got to do your best, and you've got to run the beep test until you vomit, because that's the rules when you get to that level. And so I was prepared for like this battle, like going there, but it was her that kind of said, right, this is the direction now, and you kind of have to make this choice. And so I was only 15, might have been 14 even when I went to the trials. Yeah, so I was pretty young. And then ended up making that team. But it was, looking back, like I still had opportunities to play basketball, and I played for Taranaki, played for the Thunder. Even more recently, like I think about 3 years ago, I played for the Thunder. So it's not like it's gone away. I still love basketball. I also actually did rowing. Rowing was another massive passion that I achieved quite a bit in. I spent a lot of time in Waitara because that's the only place that you can row. So I have heaps of links and a good base there as well with lots of people. So and also with the Tysons community. But rowing's an amazing sport, and I got that massive fitness base from rowing, and also just learning how to go really hard, because you've got to put your body through a lot to through that pain barrier when you're rowing, that you kind of don't do that. You don't necessarily learn that anywhere else, especially when you're young. So I was always pretty lucky, I think, that to go to rowing in Waitara when we lived in Inglewood and went to school in New Plymouth. Mum and Dad were kind of driving us at 5 in the morning to go rowing before school sometimes, and then after school we'd catch the bus and be rowing in Waitara as well. And we did so much. We were so lucky, to be able to do that. Courtney and I, my sister and I, used to row together. So hence why I say we. yeah.
That's awesome. So many sports to talk about, and some mentors too that you mentioned just earlier, and we want to speak to them soon. But before that, Pane, we're going to go to a short break and be back shortly. Kia ora koutou wānau, welcome back to Te Ao Hākinakina. We're having an awesome kōrero here with Amber Ormond, talking about her life in kaimiro back in the days, and onto all the different sports that she's played. Now, you mentioned a couple of names there that helped you, with opportunities and pathways when you were younger. Now, who were some of those other people, whether it be family, coaches or teachers, that had the biggest influence on you during those early years?
Yeah, I think, like, obviously I've talked about my parents and probably my siblings without kind of realizing it. They probably just got annoyed with me, to be honest, but I was always battling with them. I've got a brother who's 4 years older than me, and he was a really fast runner. But I think I used to beat him in basketball. So that's where I, had that competitiveness from, being able to keep up with them. But obviously I mentioned Ivy. She's been a massive influence in my life. And she always championed for netball and for me as well. But definitely for netball, sometimes it was hard because Ivy really wanted us to be going in that direction, which we loved, and there was heaps of opportunities. But then there was other people that really, kind of championed for other sports, and so it was sometimes hard because they were all so great and they always wanted the best for you. But yeah, it was always hard because you're kind of like, so many opportunities, and as time's gone on, opportunities have evolved as well. So it's hard to know kind of what I would do now, like, looking at how things are happening with netball in New Zealand, and just the evolution of sport. Really, we're so lucky. But I also had Tanya Dunes, who I talked about earlier, and another person that I think has kind of been in the shadows really for me, but has definitely had a massive impact on me when I was younger, was actually Wendy Healy, who you guys will probably know really well. And she actually, I was out in Waitara one day, probably waiting to go to rowing or something, and I was just having some shots at the courts, and she wandered over and she actually taught me how to shoot. So Wendy's actually responsible for my shooting. Yeah.
It's awesome, Auntie Wendy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Shout out to Auntie Wendy if you're tuning in and listening to this. Now, obviously, you said you came into town, you came to St. John Bosco, and you ended up at Sacred Heart. What do you remember most about your time at Sacred Heart and the role that it kind of played in your sporting development as a young kōtero?
Yeah, we we went to Sacred Heart, and to be honest, anything was better than what we had come from, because we just didn't have that many opportunities where we had been growing up. Like, we did everything, but we didn't often have enough players. Like, we'd have to merge schools to try and make enough for a team. And so that's probably why I thought, right, now I'm going to do everything and just put my hand up to do everything. And so we were lucky. And I think at the time that I was at Sacred Heart, like, Jess Tuki was there, Jamila Gutwell was there for a bit, and then she headed off to another school. We had an amazing group of people, and I think that's just luck. But yeah, heading on from there, when I did make the Pulse, I was really fortunate that Sacred Heart supported me, because I was only 17 and I was kind of a part-time student, traveling to Wellington. I actually moved to Wellington when I was year 13. And I went to Wellington Girls. It's a really funny story. Well, it's a bit of a random story. Mum and Dad weren't that keen, and Mum was going to move with me. But I was like, no, I've got this. You guys stay here and I'll go down there. There was no hostel for me to go into. So I had to go and live with an international lady with students. Which was just a funny experience, and to be honest, now I look back, it was funny. It probably wasn't at the time, but yeah, I had to learn how to catch the train, get to school, get my way around this big city. Girls at school would not bring school bags; they'd bring handbags. Like, it was just a massive culture shock for me, and then plus training with the Pulse. So I moved back home to Taranaki, and I ended up commuting to Wellington, which is a bit of a crazy story as well. Like, I'd go down there 3 times a week, and so I'd end up only being at school till kind of like 1 o'clock, catch a flight down there, and then end up coming back to Wanganui with the assistant coach, and then Mum would drive to Wanganui in the meantime, pick me up and drive me back home, because there was no flights. Yeah. Oh, it was crazy. And people are like, you did what? And your mum drove there twice a week. The weekends and back in we're so lucky. Back in those days, we used to fly around to, the competition meant we'd be over in Australia probably every second or third week as well. So there's heaps of travel. So I honestly wasn't really at school a lot, and I was just lucky because lots of our teachers supported us and said, "Oh, look, come around on the weekend, and I'll give you a quick catch up on what you've missed this week." Yeah, so much credit to them.
Awesome. Kudos to Mum for getting you around, and the schools for putting up with your absence while you're away playing netball, eh? But, as you were coming through, you made your way through the representative ranks, obviously, as at a young age. When did you kind of first think that maybe I might be able to take my game to another level and actually, make a career out of this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I always thought that, because I'd always competed with everybody. So I thought, yeah, like, I can do this. It was kind of when I got to that National Rank Cup level, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. Like, obviously I was only young, so I was just there to kind of try and do what I could. But I always wanted to prove to people that I could do it, like, just because I was young, I could still do stuff. And sometimes that humbled me a little bit. But I think I was lucky. I always had, really supportive people around me. And I think, I had heaps of challenges, which sometimes it tests your belief in yourself. And that did happen to me a lot too. And I kind of look now at the professionalism of the sport, because I was there when it began to be, it was the first year of professional netball when I started playing ANZ, and I kind of understood, like, I didn't really understand what professional sport meant. Cool, I get paid some money, that's awesome. Like, I didn't really understand it, and now I'm like, oh, really? There was a lot of to be fair, like, me moving to Wellington and not really having any support around me was a pretty big deal. And I don't know if that was the best situation for me. And in hindsight, I'm sure things would be different now, but it's just the time that I grew up in. And I always wanted to prove to people, I guess, coming from a small place as well, and even representing Taranaki, people think that we're so far away from everything here. And I always wanted to prove, no, you know what, like, doesn't matter where you come from, everyone's got 2 arms and 2 legs, you can do it. I always had a lot of want and desire to make it, to do the best that I could for myself and my family. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you definitely did that, and you definitely did prove that you can do it from no matter where you're from, Kaimiro or anywhere in the world, you can have a crack. So, Whānau, we're going to go to another quick break and be back shortly to talk to Amber about her time with the Central Pulse. Kia ora wānau, welcome back to our show, Te Ao Hākinakina. We're having an awesome kōrero here with Amber Ormond. Now, you mentioned the Central Flyers, or Western Flyers. I remember them back in the old days, and now it's the Central Pulse. How special was it to kind of earn opportunities playing for the Flyers, the Pulse, those New Zealand age group squads, and what did those experiences kind of teach you?
Yeah, gosh, pretty cool, eh? The opportunity to be amongst some of the best players for me was amazing. I always looked up to Irene van Dijk, and I remember I'd read her books and stuff, and then next minute I'm there shaking her hand after the game, and that just blew my mind. To be alongside those absolute legends of the game. That was, for me, that was real dream come true kind of moments. But yeah, I think it was just so cool to be one of the first, the last player for the Flyers and one of the first players for the Pulse. To be part of that time, and although there were challenges, what a cool thing to be part of that history. Although, with the competition the way that it is at the moment up in the air, I really hope that they can continue with that, because to be able to move on and have those experiences. And I believe we were so lucky to be part of that Australia-New Zealand competition that no longer happens. We were so lucky. We got absolutely thrashed by some of those Aussie teams back in the day, but the learning and the whole experience, it's second to none. You can't find that anywhere. And yeah, obviously playing New Zealand under-21s, and we had some good battles with Australia, and yeah, just to have your family there when you're representing any of those teams is a real proud moment, and I know they were proud, and it's just so cool. There's nothing like it, really. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, massive kudos to you for all the teams that you've made and the travels that you went on from within the game. But I'm sure whilst on that journey that every athlete faces setbacks and challenges. Was there a particular moment in your career where you kind of had to dig deep and show some real resilience and push through?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there's always plenty, yeah. But I think for me, the one that probably now I reflect on would have been when I was playing for the Pulse, and I was at school, so I was year 13, and the big pinnacle of secondary school netball is making that New Zealand secondary school team. And so for me, at that time, Kitty Wills was the coach, and she had kind of said, we really want you to come along, and it would be awesome, to have you there, because I was getting game time for the Pulse, and which was pretty crazy to be at school and then playing against the best in New Zealand and Australia. So kind of proving that I could do it. And then because Sacred Heart didn't necessarily make it to nationals, but so being able to show that we could foot it with the best players. But yeah, when it came to it, Netball New Zealand had some people in charge at the time who said, "Oh, actually, no, you need to stay at the Pulse and play for the Pulse and not go along to that." And that really challenged me, because the way that they kind of said that, it made it sound like I was too valuable to the Pulse to go and do that. And so therefore I wasn't part of that team, which was, now that I think about it, I'm really gutted that I missed out on that opportunity. And as time went on, there were other things so I was recontracted automatically for the Pulse following that year. But there had been some issues, business related issues, and behind the scenes issues and we ended up, our coach got fired for the Pulse. So I was only 18. This was a lot to deal with when you're a young teenager. But I ended up being told, okay, so Netball New Zealand owns this franchise now, and they've kind of said, like, you've got your contract, you can either leave or you can stay. And as far as I could understand, they didn't really want me. So I was like, you know what, like, I'll go. Like, if you don't want me, I will leave, and I'm going to go. And I ended up coming back to, I was studying at the time, actually. So I was in Palmy studying, and on the off season kind of thing, and then moved to Wellington when it's netball season. But I was like, no, I'm actually just going to stay in Palmy, training really hard for New Zealand 21s. Actually came back and trained really hard in summer. Did some rowing, went back to the rowing club, and went real hard and got so fit, probably the fittest I've ever been. Just like not really necessarily proving a point, but just put my focus into something else. And I think that on the other side of that, I came out to be, you know, probably the fittest, fastest, strongest I had ever been. And then I made the Pulse the following year, and it was kind of like, well, I made it and deserved to make it, as opposed to kind of just being there because I was already signed, you know. So I wanted that person who was coaching. It was actually a vet at the time, but so she was like, yeah, okay, like you've earned it, you can come back in. So there's lots of stories there.
Wow, great resilience, way to come back. That's awesome. That's grit right there. Now, You've obviously recently enjoyed some success with your local club too, with Tysons, and continue to contribute to netball in Taranaki. You know, when you look back on your journey thus far, like what achievements are you personally most proud of, and why?
Yeah, Tysons is amazing, eh? Like, it's an amazing club, and we've built this amazing legacy of I think we've won it. We've been in about 14 finals in the last 14 years or something, or won 13 times out of 14 times. It's actually crazy what the results are at the moment, and that's pretty hard to go past. Like, I don't think that's probably ever going to happen again. Like, that's unheard of. And to be, I haven't been part of every single one, but most of them, to be there alongside different people every time, but the core group tends to be the same. That in itself is pretty something you can't easily forget. But I mean, I've been lucky to have heaps of cool experiences. We've won age group titles for Western as well, under 21s, if you know, back in the day, and those moments are pretty special too, because anytime that, you know, a little place can I mean, Western's a big area, but in terms of the people and competing with, you know, Auckland and Canterbury and all those big cities, we do pretty well. We do pretty well when we're all, so those are cool memories.
100%. Well, Amber, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your amazing journey with us all. I'm sure you're an inspiration to many young kōrero out there and young tama that play netball, the great sport of netball that continues to, you know, flourish within our community here in Taranaki. I really appreciate all that you have done in this sport and continue to do in this sport. And just know that everyone here in Taranaki is really proud of you, and keep flying the flag for the sport that you love.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks.